Hey guys, welcome to Automate with Rakesh. In this video, I'm going to talk how do you get the robot ID when you are making API calls. The robot IDs are very important. So how do you get those robot IDs and where do you find it? How do you find it? What is that endpoint or the URL? Everything I'm going to cover very slowly and giving you a complete understanding. We will get started. So let's see how this is done. First of all you need to do log into orchestrator, and once you are in the orchestrator, go to the tenant and click on the robot section. So this is the place in the tenant where you would find all the robots that you have. Okay, all the robots that you have created for the tenant, everything will be listed here. If you are using a community edition, then your list of robots will be very minimal. Like me, here you can see I have only one actual robot, and these are the two users. So how do you differentiate? The robot will have this kind of icon and the user will have this kind of icons. So these are two users and this is one robot. Now here our focus is to get the robot ID. If you are in an enterprise edition, what would happen here? The list would be quite large depending on the number of robots that tenant contains. So here let's learn how do you get the robot ID. Now for this I'm going to teach you a very special knowledge which you may not find. So how do you get it? How do you get that endpoint URL in a very quick way? I'm going to show you. All you need to do, right click on this page and click on inspect. Okay, right click on the page and click on inspect, and slightly whatever this window is going to come, you can slightly enlarge or keep it adjusted accordingly. Now in this one there is something called a network tab. Click on network tab. Okay, once you click on the network tab, in this page on the left hand side there is a refresh button. Do you see? On this refresh button, all you do is simply click on the refresh button. The moment you do it, what would happen? You see a new line got added, UiPath.server configuration. Okay, the moment you hit on refresh, what happens? You can see it, right? Once again it got created. So here you need to click UiPath.server configuration. This is what you need to click. Now let me slightly expand it. Okay, just to get a clear view, I'm expanding it. Now here the first one is header, payload, preview, and kind of a response that you get. This is the response. You can see the entire response has come. What we will do, we just need the endpoint. You can copy paste this response, but again we will learn how do I implement that in UiPath Studio and get it. That is something I'm going to teach you. But here our main aim is to get the endpoint URL. That is very important. So that you will find in the header section. Okay, click on the header section and here you find this entire URL, right? So copy this to a notepad. So while you are working, the notepad is very helpful. Ensure you have a notepad open and you have copy paste. Next, you have to edit few things. So wherever until orchestrator link that you see, just delete this link. So you have from OData. Okay, OData robots, you have a server configuration and rest of it. These are the filters. I'm going to remove everything. So this becomes your endpoint. This becomes your endpoint. Okay, just put a double quote around the endpoint and your endpoint is ready. Quite simple, right? Quite simple. So copy this, go to studio, and here let's have the orchestrator HTTP request activity, and let's see here how we design it. Okay, now the very first thing, your robots are assigned to a given folder. So first you check that if your robots are assigned to the folder or not. Let me close this and let me go to the folder. And so in the tenant you have to go to the folders and select the folder and ensure you can see the robot is assigned to the folder. If not, you can assign using this robot and machines you assign. Okay, manage machines in the folder. So you can see I have added my specific PCs and my robot. This robot icon is important, that is the robot. Okay, so this I have added to my given folder. Okay, once this is done, let's go back. Here I would select the required folder, which is shared folder for me, and I would like to get the robot ID. So what is the method I will be using? Get. Okay, and the endpoint, just now we have built the endpoint. Let's paste it. So I've already given double quotes, so let's simply paste it. So done. Now let's look at the endpoint once again. Okay, do you see? OData robots UiPath server configuration dot OData get configured robots. Okay, this is the way, one of the way you can pull the robot IDs. So let me show you. Done, save it. Now the output of this, the get request, the output we will save it in a variable JSON response. Okay, there is something called JSON response. So here let me create a variable JResponse. I had already a variable, so I'm using that JResponse, JSON response. Okay, and the status code also important. What you do here also, you create a variable. I think I had a variable called status, I think. So you can see that. Now what is this JSON response? It is a string, simple string, and the status is an integer value. It will show you. Okay. Now once this is done, let's see the output first. What is the output we are getting? Okay. So activity, and let's use a right line activity. Drag and drop this. And here I'm using the JResponse variable which contains my previous activities output. So let's run this and see. Now very important, very important that the entire data, how it is coming, and it might give you a lot of raw data which you really don't need. So I'll show you how do you really filter out and find the actual ID. Okay, you can see the execution has started, and we have got some raw data. Now this raw data, if you see, this is too much to read. Okay, for example, if I go to the output and simply copy this to a notepad, now this becomes very difficult to really analyze. Okay, you can see, too much of data. Let me remove it. So let's do a few things. Another thing, we will also print the status. Okay, the status is there in the status variable, so I'm using the status. Done. Now let's see how I can convert that to a pretty format. Pretty format means in a proper way, having proper indents so that you can read it properly. So to do that, first thing you need to install what happened to the status variable. Let's see it. Status, this is the variable, right? Dot toString, because that is an integer. Okay, so this is done. Now go to manage packages, go to official, and here just type UiPath.web. Simply type UiPath.web, and this is the package. Select it. I have already installed it, so install it. If you have not, then install it and save it. That's it. So once you are done with it, you would find an activity called deserialize. Okay, simply type deserialize. So this is something which will help us that the text you saw, right? It had got ample of data which you cannot read. To make it human readable format, I'm just doing it. So deserialize JSON, which is going to, so the data that you saw, it is coming in a serial manner. Deserialize means you need to organize it in a proper order. So you can see the data is coming in a serial manner, right? So we are doing a deserialize to see it in a proper order. That's it. Here I will provide the input, which is JResponse, which is the input, and the output we are going to store in another variable called pretty format. Okay, create another variable called pretty format. Now this pretty format variable, if you see, this is a object. Okay, this is a simple object, or it could be a J object also. Can simple object variable type. So pretty format. So let's see what is the output of this first of all. Now let me do a right line, and here I am saying pretty format, and from here you will get the ID. Okay, pretty format dot toString, dot toString. Done. Now let's run it and you will get the output. So let's see it. All right, so the compiling has started. Okay, so the execution started. So we have got a 200 means successful. Okay, we have got the data. Now you can see this output. So let me copy this. So anywhere, once you see this kind of output in the output panel, anywhere you just highlight and copy this. Copy this. You don't have to select everything. Simply copy and paste it to a notepad. Okay, now this is your data. Now here you will be highly confused. In the robot section, if I go to tenant and robot section, what I saw, there are three different values. Now if you look at my output, here the count also it's saying 3. Hey, you have got some 3. Now out of that, which one is a robot, which one is a user, you can see it pretty well when you come here. In the UI you can see the icons are there which helps you to differentiate. Okay, user, and this is a robot account type is a robot account. So here you have to target the robot account. So what is the name of the robot account? Rakesh robot. Now go back to your JSON and here you have to look for robot account. Okay, so look at this, Rakesh robot unattended, and then this is the ID. So this is the ID. Now if you look at the second value, Rakesh 874U Gmail attended. So this is one of the user. Okay, if you see attended, okay, do you see attended, local user attended, that is the email address used for this guy. So attended. So this is a local user. Wherever you see local user, those are user account, not the robot accounts. Even that will get listed here. Okay. So now target for the robot account. Now for that, all you do, if you are very confused, simply check if there are email addresses something like this. These are just the user accounts. So ignore this. So entire thing I need to ignore. There is also a ID associate. If you use this ID, then you may not get any value. For example, you would like to pull the asset values associated with the robot. I'm going to show you next how to pull the asset values associated with the robot, that I'm going to show you next. So this is not a right data, so I'm going to delete it. Okay. Now there is also something called Gmail. Anywhere you find this kind of email addresses, remember this is not the proper ID. Now which doesn't have an email address, for example here if you see it is a floating type automatic, this doesn't have an email ID. If you compare the previous one, the name contains a email ID. Here if you see the name doesn't contain email ID, so this is the right one, and here this is the right ID, 65267 is the right ID. Let me copy this and store it in a notepad. I'm saying my robot ID. Got it. Using this ID, I'm going to show you a lot of things, because this ID is one of the input parameter which you have to supply in the API link to get other things. I'm going to show you in the next video. Now in this video, you have learned very nicely how do you really get the robot ID. If this video has helped you, please do comment in all my videos that it helped. Some comments I would love to read. There are many people who does it, and I feel really good to read those comments that people are really following my video and getting help. So kindly leave a comment. Alright, so let's move on to our next topic and see how we can use this robot ID to do certain other things using the endpoints.